She never expected him. The millionaire walked into her house in anger, then shocked when he saw the newborn in her hands. The door flew open, and there she stood. The woman he had spent 3 years hating. The woman his mother told him had sold their love for $500,000. The woman he had come here tonight to confront, to scream at, to finally get answers from. But the words died in his throat. Because in her arms, wrapped in a soft yellow blanket, was a newborn baby. Tiny fists curled against a chest that rose and fell with the rhythm of new life. Dark hair, impossibly dark, like his own, peeked out from beneath a small knitted cap. Logan Harrington, the man who controlled a billion-dollar empire, felt his legs give way beneath him. What is this? His voice came out strangled, broken. You should not be here. Iris whispered, but she did not close the door. Is that? He could not finish the sentence. His mind was doing calculations he was not ready to accept. Counting backward through months. Through years. Through a single night 3.5 years ago when everything had been perfect before it all fell apart. Her name is Maya. Iris said quietly, her voice cracking on every syllable. She is 3 weeks old. 3 weeks. Logan repeated, and the world tilted sideways. You were pregnant. You were pregnant when you left. I did not know when I left. Iris met his eyes, and he saw 3 years of pain reflected there. I found out 2 weeks after. By then, everything was already impossible. Have you ever believed something so completely, so absolutely, that discovering you were wrong felt like the ground opening beneath your feet? Have you ever spent years hating someone, only to realize you should have been hating someone else entirely? Logan Harrington thought he knew the truth. He thought Iris West was a gold digger who had taken his mother's money and vanished. He thought his heartbreak was the price of trusting the wrong woman. He was wrong about everything. And the real villain? She shared his last name. What happens when a billionaire discovers his own mother orchestrated the destruction of his happiness? What happens when a woman who has been running for 3 years finally gets to tell her side of the story? And what happens when a newborn baby becomes the bridge between a broken past and an impossible future? Stay with me, because this story of betrayal, hidden children, and devastating revelations will change how you think about family, trust, and the lies we believe about the people we love. 3 hours earlier, the rain had started falling over Portland like the sky itself was mourning something it could not name. Logan Harrington sat in the back of his black Mercedes, watching the water stream down the windshield in rivers that blurred the streetlights into smears of gold. His driver had offered to take him directly to his hotel. He had declined. There was somewhere else he needed to be tonight. Somewhere he had paid $50,000 to find. The address had taken 3 weeks and the best private investigator money could buy. 3 weeks of dead ends and false leads and growing obsession. 3 weeks of telling himself this was about closure when he knew, deep in the parts of himself he refused to examine, that it was about something far more dangerous. It was about her. Iris West. Even thinking her name made something twist in his chest. Something between rage and longing that he had spent 3 years trying to bury under board meetings and billion-dollar acquisitions. Something that refused to stay buried no matter how much success he piled on top of it. Take the next left. Logan said to his driver, his voice flat and controlled. The way it always was when he was barely holding himself together. The car turned onto a quiet residential street lined with mature trees and modest homes. This was not the kind of neighborhood Logan frequented. No gates, no security cameras, no staff waiting to attend to every need. Just ordinary houses where ordinary people lived ordinary lives. People like Iris, apparently. The thought made his jaw clench. 3 years ago, she had been living in his penthouse, wearing clothes he bought her, planning a wedding that would have merged their lives forever. Now she was hiding in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, as far from his world as she could get. Running from him. Or so he had thought. Stop here. Logan ordered when they reached a Victorian house at the end of the block. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow that seemed to mock the darkness in his heart. Sir, his driver began, but Logan was already opening the door, stepping out into the rain without waiting for an umbrella. The water soaked through his $3,000 suit within seconds. He did not care. He had not cared about suits or money or appearances in a very long time. Success had given him everything except the one thing that mattered. Answers. He walked up the path to the front door, his shoes squishing in the wet grass. Every step felt like a countdown. Every heartbeat felt like a war drum. 3 years of wondering, 3 years of his family's satisfied smiles and whispered words about how he had dodged a bullet, 3 years of feeling like half of himself had been amputated without anesthesia. It all compressed into this moment. He reached the door. He did not knock. He hammered. The sound echoed through the quiet neighborhood like thunder. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. A light flickered on in an upstairs window of the house next door. Logan did not care who saw him, who heard him, what they thought. He needed to see her. He needed to understand. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 years, nothing happened. Then he heard footsteps. Soft, hesitant footsteps approaching the door from the other side. The handle turned. And everything Logan Harrington thought he knew about his life crumbled into dust. The woman standing in the doorway was not the Iris he remembered. The Iris he had known 3 years ago was polished, confident, radiant with the kind of beauty that made people stop mid-sentence just to look at her. She wore designer clothes with effortless grace. She laughed like champagne bubbles. She made him feel like the luckiest man in the world every time she chose to spend another day with him. This woman looked exhausted. Her dark curls were pulled back in a messy bun that was coming undone on one side. She wore a worn cardigan that hung off one shoulder, revealing a faded t-shirt beneath. There were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights stretching back further than the 3 weeks since she had given birth. But she was still beautiful. Even exhausted, even clearly terrified to see him, she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. And then his eyes dropped to what she was holding. The baby was so small. That was his first coherent thought. So impossibly small, wrapped in a yellow blanket that looked hand-knitted, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos her existence was causing in Logan's mind. Dark hair. Just like his. A face so new to the world that it had not yet decided what it would become, but already showing hints of features he recognized from his own mirror. The math was not complicated. Even in his shocked state, Logan could do basic arithmetic. 3 weeks old. 9 months of pregnancy. That meant conception happened approximately 9.5 months ago. No. Not 9.5 months ago. 3 years and 9.5 months ago. Right before Iris disappeared. Right before his mother told him that the woman he loved had taken $500,000 to walk away and never look back. Logan. Iris breathed, and the way she said his name, like she was seeing a ghost, like she had spent 3 years both hoping and dreading this moment, made something crack open inside him. What? He had to stop. Swallow. Try again. What is this? You should not be here. But she did not close the door. She did not call for help. She did not do any of the things someone might do when a man they had stolen money from showed up on their doorstep in the middle of the night. She just stood there, clutching the baby closer, looking at him with eyes that held 3 years of pain and fear and something else he could not quite name. Is that? He could not finish the sentence. Could not force the words past the chaos in his throat. The baby stirred in Iris's arms, making a soft sound that cut through the rain and the tension and the decades of emotional walls Logan had built around his heart. Come inside. Iris said quietly, stepping back from the doorway. Before the neighbors start wondering why there is a man having a breakdown on my porch. The house was warm in a way Logan's penthouse had never been. That was the first thing he noticed as he stepped across the threshold, dripping rainwater onto a worn Persian rug that had probably seen better decades. Plants on windowsills. Books stacked on end tables with worn spines suggesting they had been read and loved, not just displayed. A baby swing in the corner with a mobile of tiny stars hanging above it. This was a home. Not a showcase, not an investment property, not a statement of wealth and status. A home where someone actually lived and loved and raised a child. A child he had not known existed until 60 seconds ago. Logan could not make his legs carry him any further into the room. He stood frozen near the entrance, water pooling beneath his expensive shoes, his eyes fixed on the baby in Iris's arms. Her name is Maya. Iris said, settling carefully into a rocking chair that creaked with familiar use. She is 3 weeks old. 3 weeks. He repeated the words without processing them. Her birthday is March 15th. March 15th. Logan felt the floor tilt beneath him. Exactly 9 months and 10 days after the last night he had spent with Iris. The night before she vanished. The night he had told her he could not wait to spend the rest of his life with her. The night that had been followed by the worst morning of his existence. You were pregnant. His voice came out hollow, mechanical, like someone else was speaking through him. You were pregnant when you left. I did not know when I left. Iris met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw not the villain his mother had painted but a woman who had been through her own private hell. I found out 2 weeks after. By then, everything was already impossible. Impossible. The word ignited something in Logan. A spark of the rage that had driven him here in the first place. What was impossible about telling me I was going to be a father? What was impossible about a phone call, an email, a letter? Anything. It is complicated. Then explain it to me. He crossed the room without deciding to, stopping just short of the rocking chair, close enough to see the delicate features of the baby's face. Close enough to see the way Maya's tiny fingers curled around the edge of her blanket. Explain why I am meeting my daughter for the first time when she is 3 weeks old. Explain why I have spent 3 years believing you took my mother's money and ran. Explain why you destroyed everything we had and never looked back. Is that what they told you? Iris's voice carried an edge he had never heard before. That I took money? $500,000. Deposited into an account in your name. My mother showed me the records herself. The laugh that escaped Iris was hollow, broken, completely devoid of humor. Of course she did. Of course there were records. Eleanor Harrington does not leave loose ends. The name hit Logan like a physical blow. His mother. The woman who had comforted him through his heartbreak. The woman who had held him while he raged against Iris's betrayal. The woman who had paraded suitable replacement after suitable replacement before him for 3 years, always with the same subtle message. See? You deserve better. You always deserved better. What are you saying? Logan asked, and his voice sounded foreign to his own ears. I am saying I never saw a penny of that money. Iris looked up at him, and there were tears threatening in her eyes now, tears she was clearly fighting to hold back. I am saying your mother gave me an ultimatum the night before our wedding. Disappear or watch you be destroyed. She had proof of something, Logan. Something she threatened to make public if I did not leave. Proof of what? What could possibly be worth destroying our lives over? Maya stirred again, a small whimper escaping her rosebud mouth. Iris automatically shifted, rocking gently, soothing her daughter with the practiced ease of someone who had been doing this alone for 3 weeks. For 9 months of pregnancy. For 3 years of hiding. Your father. The words fell into the air like bombs. I had proof that your father had been embezzling from the family foundation for 15 years. Channeling charitable donations into offshore accounts. I found the discrepancies when I was helping plan the foundation gala. I thought, stupidly, naively, that I should tell your mother. That she would want to know. That we could handle it privately, protect the family name while making things right. Logan felt the blood drain from his face. His father. Harrison Harrington, the patriarch, the philanthropist, the man whose name was on hospital wings and scholarship programs and disaster relief funds across the country. That is impossible. My father would never. Your father has been stealing from cancer patients and underprivileged children for 15 years. Iris cut him off, her voice gaining strength even as tears spilled down her cheeks. I saw the accounts, Logan. I followed the money. Millions of dollars that were supposed to help people in need, funneled into shell corporations and offshore banks. If that were true, why would my mother want to cover it up? Why would she threaten you instead of thanking you? Because she did not want to protect the family from scandal. She wanted to protect your father from consequences. And she decided the best way to do that was to eliminate the person who knew the truth. The room seemed to spin around Logan. Every certainty he had built his life upon for the last 3 years was crumbling. His mother as his protector. His father as a good man. Iris as a gold digger who had used him. All lies. She told me that if I did not disappear, she would go public with everything. Iris continued, the words coming faster now, like a dam finally breaking after years of pressure. But she would frame it to look like I was the one who had been stealing. She had documents ready, Logan. Documents that would have destroyed my life, sent me to prison, and dragged you down with me. Why did you not tell me? The question tore out of him. Why did you not come to me? She had people watching you. Watching both of us. The night I left, she told me that if I tried to contact you, if I tried to explain, she would make sure the evidence against me was leaked within hours. Iris's voice broke on the last word. I loved you. I loved you so much that I was willing to give you up to protect you from being caught in the crossfire of your mother's schemes. Logan sank into the chair across from her, his legs finally giving out. He stared at Maya, at this tiny person who represented everything he had lost without even knowing he had lost it. 3 years. He whispered. 3 years, and you never tried to reach me. Even when you found out you were pregnant. Even when you gave birth alone. I thought about it every day. Every single day, I picked up the phone and put it down again. I wrote letters I never sent. I drove past post offices and kept driving. Because what if Eleanor was still watching? What if she found out I was pregnant and decided to take my baby? She threatened that once, you know. During one of our early confrontations after I discovered the embezzlement. She said she could make anyone disappear. And if I was carrying something she wanted, she would simply take it. My mother would never harm a child. Your mother destroyed my life to protect her husband's crimes. Iris met his eyes with a directness that left no room for denial. Do you really believe there is anything she would not do to protect Harrington interests? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Logan was not ready to face. Because the answer, the honest answer, was no. He did not believe there was anything Eleanor Harrington would not do. He had watched her navigate corporate warfare with the precision of a surgeon. He had seen her destroy competitors without flinching. He had always assumed her ruthlessness was reserved for business. But what if it was not? What if it extended to everything? What if it extended to him? Before I continue with what happened next in that small living room in Portland, I need to pause and speak directly to you. If you have ever been blamed for something you did not do, if you have ever watched someone believe lies about you while the real villain walked free, then you understand a fraction of what Iris has been carrying for 3 years. She lost the man she loved. She lost her future. She gave birth alone in a hospital where no one knew her real name, terrified that the wrong person might find out and take her baby away. And Logan? He spent 3 years nursing a wound that was based entirely on fiction. Hating a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect him. Building walls around his heart because he believed love was dangerous. This story is about to take a turn that will challenge everything you think you know about family loyalty and the length some people will go to protect their interests. If you are feeling this journey, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who has been unfairly judged. And if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications because the revelations coming next will shock you. Now, let me tell you what really happened 3 years ago. The night before their wedding should have been the happiest of Iris's life. The rehearsal dinner had been perfect. Logan's toast had made her cry. Their families had gotten along beautifully, or so Iris had thought. Everything was in place for the next day, when she would walk down the aisle toward the man she loved more than she had ever loved anything. Instead, it became the night her world ended. She had stayed late at the Harrington estate to finalize some details for the foundation gala that was scheduled for the week after their honeymoon. Iris had taken on the project as a way to integrate herself into the family, to show Eleanor that she was not just arm candy but someone who could contribute meaningfully to Harrington causes. That decision destroyed everything. The financial records were supposed to be routine. Donation tracking, expense reports, vendor payments. But something did not add up. The numbers flowing in did not match the numbers flowing out. There were gaps, discrepancies, money that seemed to vanish between the giving and the spending. At first, Iris assumed it was an accounting error. She spent hours cross-referencing spreadsheets, convinced she was missing something obvious. But the more she dug, the clearer the picture became. Someone was stealing from the Harrington Foundation. Not small amounts. Millions of dollars over 15 years. Money that was supposed to fund cancer research was going to numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands. Scholarship funds for underprivileged students were being redirected to shell corporations. Disaster relief donations were disappearing into a maze of offshore entities. And all the transactions traced back to one person. Harrison Harrington. Iris had not wanted to believe it. This was Logan's father. This was the man who gave speeches about the importance of giving back. This was the face of philanthropy in their social circle, photographed at charity events, praised in magazine profiles, held up as an example of how the wealthy should use their resources. He was a fraud. And he had been a fraud for longer than Iris had been alive. She did not know what to do. Confronting Harrison seemed dangerous. Going to the authorities would destroy the Harrington name and devastate Logan. She needed advice from someone who could help her navigate the situation carefully. She chose Eleanor. Looking back, it was the worst decision of her life. She found her future mother-in-law in the study, reviewing her own stack of documents with reading glasses perched on her nose. Eleanor looked up when Iris entered, her expression warm and welcoming. "Iris, darling. You should be in bed. Big day tomorrow." "I know. I just..." Iris hesitated, clutching the folder of evidence against her chest. "I found something. In the foundation records. Something I think you need to see." Eleanor's expression did not change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Something cold and calculating that Iris had never noticed before. "Show me." Iris handed over the folder. She watched Eleanor flip through the pages, her face remaining perfectly neutral even as the evidence of her husband's crimes piled up before her. "I thought maybe it was a mistake," Iris said, her voice hopeful even as dread began to pool in her stomach. "Some kind of accounting error. But I traced every transaction, and they all lead back to Harrison. Eleanor finished for her, closing the folder with a soft snap. Yes. I know. You know. I have known for years. Eleanor set the folder aside and removed her reading glasses, folding them carefully before meeting Iris's eyes. Do you really think anything happens in this family without my knowledge? Then why? Iris felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Why have you not stopped it? Why have you not reported it? Reported my own husband? Eleanor laughed, and the sound was nothing like the warm chuckle Iris had grown accustomed to. It was cold, sharp, a blade wrapped in silk. And destroyed everything we have built. Everything that will one day belong to Logan. This is stolen money. People are dying because research is not being funded. Children are not going to college because scholarships do not exist. People die every day. Eleanor stood, and suddenly she seemed taller, more imposing, like a mask had been removed to reveal something far more dangerous beneath. Children fail to reach their potential all the time. These things happen regardless of what Harrison does with foundation money. The difference is whether the Harrington name survives intact. I cannot be part of this. Iris took a step back, her heart pounding. I have to tell Logan. We have to figure out how to make this right. You will tell Logan nothing. The command stopped Iris cold. There was something in Eleanor's voice, something that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Excuse me. Sit down, Iris. Eleanor gestured to the leather chair across from her desk. We need to have a conversation about your future. And I assure you, you will want to be sitting for this. What followed was the most terrifying hour of Iris's life. Eleanor laid out her position with the calm precision of someone who had planned for this moment. Perhaps not this exact moment, but a moment like it. A moment when someone outside the family discovered the truth. She had documentation prepared. Financial records that had been expertly altered to show Iris, not Harrison, as the source of the embezzlement. Falsified emails suggesting Iris had been planning the theft for years, even before she met Logan. Witness statements from staff members who would swear they had seen Iris accessing accounts she should not have known existed. It was a complete frame job, assembled with the kind of attention to detail that suggested Eleanor had done this before. If you go to anyone with what you know, Eleanor said, her voice pleasant as if discussing lunch plans, these documents will be delivered to the FBI within the hour. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. And Logan. She paused, letting the name hang in the air. Logan will be devastated, of course. But he will recover. He will marry someone suitable, someone who understands how this family operates. And he will never know that the woman he loved was actually a criminal mastermind who targeted him from the beginning. That is insane. Iris's voice shook. No one will believe that. Logan knows me. He knows I would never. Does he? Eleanor tilted her head. Does anyone really know anyone? Or do we just believe what we are shown? I have spent 2 years building a narrative about you, Iris. Small comments to the right people. Subtle doubts planted in careful soil. By the time these documents surface, everyone will say they always suspected something was off about the girl from nowhere who captured Logan's heart. You have been planning this for 2 years. I have been planning for every eventuality for 40 years. Eleanor smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. You are not the first threat to this family, and you will not be the last. The only question now is whether you walk away quietly or whether you force me to destroy you publicly. Iris felt tears streaming down her face, but she forced herself to think through the panic. What do you want? I want you to disappear. Tonight. Before the wedding. You will leave without saying goodbye to Logan, without explaining yourself. You will go somewhere far away and never contact him again. In exchange, these documents stay in my safe, and you stay out of prison. He will hate me. Yes. Eleanor agreed. He will hate you. But he will be free of you, which is all I have ever wanted. My son deserves better than a woman who would use him as a stepping stone. Someone who saw an opportunity and seized it, regardless of who got hurt. I love him. Love is irrelevant. Legacy is what matters. Harrington legacy. And you are not part of that legacy. You never were. Iris stared at the woman she had almost called mother. The woman who had hugged her at holidays, who had helped her pick out wedding invitations, who had made her feel like she was finally part of a family after growing up with nothing. All of it had been a lie. What if I refuse? Iris asked, though she already knew the answer. Then I make a phone call, and within the hour, police will arrive at your apartment with a warrant. You will spend your wedding day in a holding cell instead of a church. And when the media gets the story, and they will get the story. Logan will have no choice but to distance himself from you publicly. Eleanor leaned forward. Either way, you lose him. The only question is whether you lose everything else as well. There was no way out. Iris could see that now. Eleanor had constructed the perfect trap, and she had walked right into it. If I go. Her voice was barely a whisper. You will leave him alone. Let him live his life without me interfering. I have no interest in hurting my son. Eleanor sat back, satisfied. I simply want to ensure his future is not contaminated by unsuitable attachments. Once you are gone, he will grieve briefly and then move on. I will make sure of it. Iris closed her eyes. She thought of Logan, asleep in his apartment across town, dreaming of their wedding day. She thought of the vows she had written, the life they had planned, the future that was being ripped away from her. And she made the only choice Eleanor left her. Fine. Iris opened her eyes, and something had hardened in them. Something that would keep her alive through the years to come. I will go. Tonight. But I want you to know something, Eleanor. One day, the truth will come out. It always does. And when it does, I hope Logan understands that everything I did was to protect him. Such a romantic notion. Eleanor smiled. Now get out of my house. You have a disappearance to arrange. Iris left the Harrington estate with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart that felt like it was bleeding out inside her chest. She could not go back to the apartment she shared with Logan. Eleanor probably had people watching already. She could not call anyone from her old life because those calls might be monitored. She could not even cry properly because the tears kept choking her, and she needed to think clearly if she was going to survive this. She drove through the night to a motel 3 towns away, paying cash for a room that smelled like cigarettes and despair. She sat on the edge of the thin mattress and tried to figure out what to do next. The easiest thing would be to go to the police herself. Beat Eleanor to the punch. Tell them what she had found and hope they believed her over a woman with unlimited resources and political connections. But hope was not a strategy. And Eleanor had been very clear about what would happen if Iris tried to fight. Prison. Disgrace. Logan hating her not just for leaving but for being the criminal his mother painted her as. At least this way, he would only hate her for running. That seemed somehow more bearable than the alternative. Over the following weeks, Iris dismantled her life piece by piece. She closed bank accounts and opened new ones under a different name. She moved from motel to motel, never staying anywhere long enough to be found. She dyed her hair, changed her style, became someone new out of necessity. And then, 2 weeks after the night that destroyed everything, she discovered she was pregnant. The test was a cruel joke. 2 pink lines that should have meant joy and celebration and excited phone calls to family. Instead, they meant terror. If Eleanor found out there was a baby, a Harrington heir growing inside the woman she had exiled, what would she do? I can make anyone disappear. Eleanor had said once, early in their acquaintance, when discussing a business rival who had crossed her. And if you are carrying something I want, I will simply take it. At the time, Iris had assumed she was speaking metaphorically. Now she was not so sure. She could not risk reaching out to Logan. Even if she could somehow get a message to him without Eleanor intercepting it, what would she say? Your mother threatened to frame me for your father's crimes, and now I am pregnant, and I am terrified she will take our baby. He would not believe her. Not after his mother had spent 2 years poisoning the well. Not after Iris had vanished without a word, confirming every suspicion Eleanor had planted. So she ran further. Different cities. Different names. Jobs that paid cash and asked no questions. She waitressed and cleaned hotel rooms and answered phones at temp agencies, all while her belly grew and her fear intensified. The pregnancy was hard. She had no one to help her. No one to bring her crackers when morning sickness hit. No one to drive her to doctor's appointments or hold her hand during ultrasounds. She went through it alone, terrified and grieving and somehow still hoping that the baby growing inside her would make all of it worthwhile. Maya was born in a Portland hospital under the name Sarah Mitchell. Iris had chosen Portland because it was far from New York, far from Logan's world, far enough that Eleanor would not think to look for her there. She had found a small house to rent, a community that did not ask too many questions, a life that was quiet enough to hide in. And for 3 weeks, she thought she had made it. She thought she was finally safe. Then Logan Harrington showed up at her door, and everything she had sacrificed to protect him came crashing down around her. Back in that small living room, with the rain still falling outside and Maya sleeping peacefully between them, Logan absorbed the truth of what his mother had done. It was not easy. Every instinct he had developed over 36 years told him to defend his family, to find holes in Iris's story, to preserve the reality he had always known. But the holes were not in her story. They were in everything he had believed. His mother had shown him bank records of Iris's payoff, but now that he thought about it, she had shown him printouts, not verified statements. Documents that could have been created anywhere. His mother had comforted him through his heartbreak, but she had also been conveniently available to provide that comfort. Almost as if she had known exactly when his heart would need mending. His mother had paraded replacement after replacement before him, women from good families, women who would never challenge Harrington power structures. Women who understood their place. Unlike Iris, who had discovered a 15-year embezzlement scheme within 2 years of joining the family. Iris had been a threat not because she was a gold digger but because she was too smart. Too observant. Too likely to discover things that were meant to stay hidden. His mother had eliminated that threat with surgical precision. "I have evidence," Logan said finally, and his voice was rough with the aftermath of having his world rebuilt around him. 6 months ago, I started looking into the family finances. I found the offshore accounts. I found the discrepancies. I thought it was just my father's corruption. I did not know it was connected to you. Iris stared at him. "You have evidence of what your father did? Enough to put him away for years. Enough to destroy the foundation that has been built on stolen donations. I have been building a case without realizing it was the same case that drove you away." Maya stirred in Iris's arms, making the small sounds of a baby about to wake. Logan watched his daughter's face scrunch up, watched her tiny fists wave in protest against consciousness, and felt something fundamental shift inside him. He had missed so much. First smiles that happened without him. First sounds that he was not there to hear. 3 weeks of his daughter's life already gone, and 3 years before that when he should have been standing beside Iris, should have been protecting her from his own family. "Can I hold her?" The words came out before he could stop them. Iris hesitated. For a moment, Logan saw the fear in her eyes, the learned caution of someone who had spent 3 years protecting her child from threats both real and imagined. Then she rose from the rocking chair and crossed the space between them. She placed Maya in his arms with the tenderness of someone handing over the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. Logan looked down at his daughter. At eyes that were starting to flutter open, revealing irises that had not yet decided what color they would be. At a mouth that yawned and then settled into something that might have been a smile. At fingers so tiny they barely wrapped around his thumb when he offered it to her. "Hi Maya." He whispered, and his voice cracked on her name. "I am your dad. I did not know you existed until tonight. I am so sorry. I am so sorry I was not here for you. But I am here now, and I promise you, I promise both of you, I am never leaving again." The baby blinked up at him, taking in this new face with the serious attention newborns give to everything. She did not cry. She did not fuss. She just looked at him like she was deciding whether to trust him. Logan hoped she would give him the chance to earn it. The hours that followed were unlike anything Logan had ever experienced. He and Iris talked until the sun started to lighten the sky outside her windows. They talked about what she had been through, the years of running and hiding and giving birth alone. They talked about what he had discovered, the evidence he had compiled without knowing its full significance. They talked about his mother, the woman who had orchestrated all of this from behind her mask of maternal concern. And they talked about what came next. "She cannot know," Iris said, fear threading through her exhausted voice. "If Eleanor finds out about Maya, if she realizes there is a Harrington heir she does not control, she will come after us. She threatened to take any child I was carrying. I believe her. She will not touch either of you." Logan's voice was steel. "I will make sure of it." "How?" "She has resources, connections, power. So do I." He looked at her across the room, and something in his gaze made her believe him. "I have spent 3 years building my own empire, separate from my parents. I have allies they do not know about, resources they cannot access. And I have something else now." "What?" "The truth. And a reason to use it." He could see the doubt in her eyes, the fear of hoping after so many years of surviving on caution alone. He understood that fear. He had lived with his own version of it, the certainty that he would never trust anyone again after Iris's supposed betrayal. But the betrayal had been fiction. And the woman in front of him was not the villain of his story. She was the victim of the real villain. And Logan was going to make sure his mother paid for every moment of suffering she had caused. "Let me help you," he said, and the words were both a plea and a promise. "Let me be here, for Maya, for you. Let me prove that I am not the man who gave up on you, because I never gave up." I was lied to. We both were. But we know the truth now. And together, we can make sure no one else gets hurt by my mother's schemes. Iris was quiet for a long moment, looking at him with eyes that had seen too much pain to trust easily. But she also saw the father of her child, holding Maya with a tenderness that could not be faked. She saw the man she had loved, devastated by the same person who had devastated her. She saw someone who was offering not just words but presence, commitment, action. Okay. She whispered finally. But Logan, if you hurt her. She paused, and her voice hardened. If you hurt either of us, if you prove to be anything like your mother, I will disappear again. And this time, you will never find us. I understand. He met her eyes without flinching. I am going to spend the rest of my life proving you can trust me. Both of you. Starting now. Maya yawned in his arms, a tiny sound that seemed to break the tension in the room. Logan looked down at his daughter, at this small person who had already survived so much before she was even a month old. He had missed 3 weeks of her life. 3 years of Iris's life. An entire relationship that should have led to marriage and family and happiness. But he was not going to miss anything else. The rain had stopped sometime in the early hours of the morning. Sunlight was beginning to stream through the windows of the small Victorian house, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like tiny promises. Logan Harrington had come here tonight looking for answers and expecting to find an enemy. Instead, he had found a daughter. And he had found the woman he had never stopped loving. And he had found a truth that would change everything. Now he just had to figure out what to do with it. The morning after Logan discovered his daughter's existence, he made a decision that would have seemed impossible 24 hours earlier. He was not going back to New York. Not permanently, anyway. There were things he needed to handle, assets to restructure, lawyers to consult. But his life, his real life, was no longer in the glass tower that bore his family's name. It was in a modest Victorian house in Portland, with a woman who had sacrificed everything to protect him and a daughter who did not yet know how much her father had already failed her. He would not fail her again. I need to go back for a few days. Logan told Iris as the morning sun filled her small kitchen with golden light. There are things I need to put in place before we move forward. Legal protections, financial restructuring. I need to make sure my mother cannot touch any of us before I confront her. Iris stood by the counter, Maya cradled against her shoulder, watching him with an expression that mixed hope and caution in equal measure. And then what? Then I come back here. Permanently. Logan, you cannot just abandon your life in New York because of one night. I am not abandoning anything. He crossed to her, close enough to see the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she was trying to hide. I am claiming the life that was stolen from me. From us. I have spent 3 years building an empire that means nothing. Do you know what I have in New York? A penthouse that feels like a museum. Business associates who would sell me out for the right price. A mother who manipulated me into hating the woman I loved. He reached out carefully, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Everything that matters is here. You and Maya. That is what I want. That is what I am going to fight for. Iris closed her eyes, and he saw the struggle playing out across her features. The desperate desire to believe him warring with 3 years of learned distrust. Words are easy, Logan. She said finally. Your mother taught me that. She said all the right things too, right up until she destroyed my life. Then let me prove it with actions. Give me 2 weeks. I will come back with everything we need to protect ourselves. And then I will show you, every day, that I am not the man my mother tried to make me. Maya made a soft sound against Iris's shoulder, and both of them looked at the baby. At this tiny person who represented everything that had gone wrong and everything that could still go right. 2 weeks. Iris agreed quietly. But Logan, if you do not come back, if this turns out to be another lie. It is not a lie. He said firmly. And I will prove it. The flight back to New York felt like traveling to a foreign country. Logan sat in his private jet, staring out the window at clouds that looked the same as they always had, but everything else had changed. The leather seat that had once felt like luxury now felt like excess. The champagne chilling in the cabin refrigerator seemed absurd when he thought of Iris counting pennies to buy diapers. He had lived in a bubble of wealth and privilege while the mother of his child scraped by in hiding. While his daughter grew in a womb he did not know existed. While his own mother smiled and lied and destroyed everything he cared about. No more. He pulled out his phone and began making calls. His lawyer first, the one he trusted completely, the one who had no connection to Harrington family business. Then his accountant, with instructions to begin separating his personal assets from anything tied to his parents. Then the private investigator who had found Iris in the first place, with a new assignment. Find everything on Eleanor Harrington. Every secret, every scheme, every skeleton in every closet. I want to know what she has done in the last 40 years. All of it. By the time the plane landed, Logan had the beginnings of a plan. It would take time to execute. Eleanor had spent decades building her power base, and dismantling it would not happen overnight. But Logan had something his mother did not know about. He had the evidence she had tried so hard to bury. And he had a reason to use it that went beyond justice or revenge. He had a daughter to protect. A woman to prove himself to. A family to build from the ashes of his mother's destruction. Nothing was going to stop him. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in strategic dismantling. Logan moved through his New York life like a surgeon excising a tumor, cutting away everything that connected him to his parents while preserving the healthy tissue of his own achievements. His company, Cross Enterprises, had always operated separately from Harrington Holdings. That was intentional. Logan had built it from scratch, determined to prove he could succeed without his family's name or money. Now that independence became his shield. He transferred his personal accounts to banks his mother had no connection to. He moved his residence from the penthouse his parents had given him to a hotel suite that offered privacy and security. He met with lawyers to establish trusts and protections for Maya, documents that would ensure she was provided for regardless of what happened next. And through it all, he video-called Portland every night. The first call was awkward. Iris held Maya up to the screen while Logan watched his daughter sleep, feeling the distance between them like a physical weight. She is beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. She has your stubbornness. Iris replied, and there was a hint of a smile in her voice. She refuses to sleep unless she is being held. The moment I put her down, she wakes up screaming. I am sorry you have been doing this alone. I have gotten used to it. That is not the same as being okay with it. Logan leaned closer to the screen, wishing he could reach through it. I am going to be there, Iris. 2 more weeks, and I will be there for the midnight feedings and the screaming and all of it. I promise. Iris was quiet for a moment, and he could see her processing his words, weighing them against her experience. You know what the hardest part has been? She said finally. It is not the exhaustion or the fear or even the loneliness. It is pretending. Pretending I am fine. Pretending I do not miss you every single day. Pretending that the life I built without you is enough when it has never been enough. It has just been survival. Logan felt his heart crack open at her words. You do not have to pretend anymore. He said softly. I am coming home. And together, we are going to build something real. Something that is not based on lies or fear or survival. Something that actually feels like living. I want to believe that. Then believe it. Let me prove it. One day at a time. On the 14th day, Logan Harrington returned to Portland. Not with a suitcase this time, but with a moving truck. Not as a visitor, but as someone putting down roots. He had found a townhouse 10 minutes from Iris's Victorian, close enough to be present but far enough to respect the boundaries she needed. 3 years of separation could not be bridged overnight. They both knew that. Trust had to be rebuilt in increments, not assumed because of a shared child. But he was there. And he was staying. This is really happening. Iris said, standing in the empty living room of his new townhouse while Maya slept in her carrier beside them. You actually moved here. I told you I would. People say a lot of things they do not mean. Logan stepped closer to her, close enough to see the mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. I have made a lot of mistakes, Iris. I trusted my mother when I should have questioned her. I believed lies when I should have searched for truth. I let you disappear for 3 years without ever really trying to understand why. But I am done making those mistakes. I am here, and I am not going anywhere. What about your company? Your life in New York? I have opened a satellite office here. Most of my work can be done remotely. And as for my life in New York. He paused, choosing his words carefully. That was never really a life. It was an existence. High-functioning survival dressed up in expensive suits. The only time I actually felt alive was when I was with you. Iris's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I thought I had let go of you. She whispered. I thought 3 years was enough time to move on, to stop loving someone who was never coming back. But the moment you showed up at my door, I realized I had just been holding my breath. Waiting. You do not have to wait anymore. He reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it. Her fingers were cold despite the warmth of the room, trembling slightly against his palm. I am still scared. She admitted. I know. So am I. But we are going to be scared together. And that is better than being alone. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of rebuilding. Logan immersed himself in fatherhood with the same intensity he had once applied to business. He read parenting books late into the night, highlighting passages about newborn development and sleep training and infant nutrition. He researched the best pediatricians in Portland and scheduled appointments. He learned to change diapers with military precision and discovered that the smell of baby spit-up could cling to a $3,000 shirt for days. He did not care. Every moment with Maya was a gift he had almost lost forever. He treasured the midnight feedings when it was just him and his daughter in the quiet darkness, her tiny fingers curled around his thumb while she drank from her bottle. He memorized the way her face scrunched up before she cried, the surprisingly strong grip of her hands, the soft sound she made when she was content. You are good with her. Iris observed one evening, watching Logan rock Maya in the glider he had purchased for her nursery. Better than I expected. What did you expect? I am not sure. Maybe that you would get bored once the novelty wore off. That fatherhood would interfere with your business and you would start finding excuses. That you would realize suburban life in Portland is not exactly the Manhattan penthouse lifestyle. Logan looked up at her, his expression serious despite the baby in his arms. That penthouse was a prison. I just did not realize it because the bars were made of glass and the lock was made of money. This. He gestured at the nursery, at Maya, at Iris standing in the doorway. This is freedom. This is what matters. She did not respond, but he saw something shift in her eyes. A small crack in the wall she had built around herself. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of willingness to trust. It was enough. It was a start. But even as Logan built his new life in Portland, the shadow of his old one loomed larger every day. Eleanor Harrington was not a woman who accepted defeat gracefully. And while she did not yet know about Maya, she had certainly noticed her son's absence. The calls started 2 weeks after Logan moved. Polite at first, then increasingly insistent. Darling, I am worried about you. Eleanor's voice through the phone was warm with maternal concern, the same tone she had used to comfort him after Iris's disappearance. You have been so distant lately. Your father and I would love to see you. Perhaps dinner this weekend? I am busy. Logan replied, keeping his voice neutral. You are always busy. But surely you can make time for family. The irony of her using that word was not lost on him. I will let you know when my schedule opens up. He ended the call before she could press further. But he knew the reprieve was temporary. Eleanor would not stop at phone calls. She would send people, manipulate situations, find ways to insert herself into his life whether he wanted her there or not. The confrontation was coming. Logan could feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. He just needed to make sure he was ready. I need to pause here and speak directly to you, because we have reached a turning point in this story. For months, Logan has been building a case against his own parents. For 3 years, Iris has been hiding from a woman powerful enough to make anyone disappear. And now, as Maya grows from a newborn into an infant who smiles at her father's face and reaches for her mother's hair, the moment of truth is approaching. What would you do in Logan's position? Would you confront the mother who destroyed your chance at happiness? Would you risk everything, the family name, the fortune, the life you have always known, for a woman who spent 3 years as a ghost and a daughter you only recently discovered existed? These are not easy questions. And the answers Logan is about to give will change everything. If you are invested in this journey, if you want to see justice served and truth finally brought into the light, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you do not miss a single moment. And drop a comment telling me what you think Eleanor Harrington deserves for what she did. Because trust me, the confrontation that is coming will leave you stunned. Now, let me tell you what happened when Logan finally faced his mother. The confrontation happened 6 months after Maya was born. By then, Logan had settled completely into his Portland life. His business thrived despite the distance from New York. His relationship with Iris had progressed from careful coexistence to something that resembled partnership, though neither of them had yet put a name to what they were building. And Maya. His daughter was 6 months old now, crawling with determined purpose across the floor, babbling sounds that almost resembled words, looking at her father with recognition in something that might have been love. She said Dada yesterday. Iris told him one morning, and Logan felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. Really? Well, she said something that sounded like Dada. It might have been coincidence. It was not coincidence. Logan insisted, grinning with pure parental pride. She is a genius. She clearly takes after her father. Iris laughed, and the sound was so natural, so unguarded, that Logan realized how far they had come. 6 months ago, she had looked at him with fear and suspicion. Now there were moments, like this one, when the walls came down and he could see the woman she used to be. The woman she was becoming again. But their peaceful bubble was about to burst. The lawyers called that afternoon. The case was ready. Every piece of evidence had been verified, every document authenticated. Harrison Harrington's 15 years of embezzlement were documented beyond any reasonable doubt. And Eleanor's role in covering it up, including the threats against Iris, had been pieced together through financial records, surveillance footage, and statements from former staff members who had finally been convinced to talk. It was time. I need to go to New York. Logan told Iris that evening, after Maya was asleep in her crib. When? Tomorrow. Iris's face went pale. The confrontation. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the Portland twilight. I want to come with you. No. Logan's response was immediate and firm. I need you here with Maya. And I need you safe. If something goes wrong. What could go wrong? I do not know. That is the problem. My mother has spent 40 years accumulating power, and I am about to take it all away from her. I do not know how she will react. I do not know what she is capable of. I just know that you and Maya need to be as far from her as possible. Iris turned to face him, and he saw the conflict in her eyes. The desire to be there, to finally confront the woman who had stolen 3 years of her life. The fear of what might happen if she did. Come back to us. She said finally. Whatever happens in that room, whatever she says or does, you come back to us. I will. Promise me, Logan. He crossed to her and took her hands in his. He could feel her trembling, the terror she was trying to hide. I promise. I am going to end this, and then I am coming home. To you and Maya. Nothing is going to stop me. The flight to New York was the longest of Logan's life. He spent the hours reviewing documents, preparing statements, going over every possible scenario in his mind. But underneath the preparation, a different kind of reckoning was taking place. He was about to destroy his own family. Not the family he had chosen, the one waiting for him in Portland. But the family he had been born into. The name he had carried for 36 years. The legacy that had shaped every aspect of his existence. Harrison Harrington would go to prison. The foundation that bore their name would collapse under the weight of scandal. And Eleanor. His mother, the woman who had rocked him to sleep as a baby and cheered at his graduation and smiled at his engagement party while secretly plotting to destroy his happiness. She would face consequences that Logan could barely imagine. Was he ready for that? Was he ready to be the instrument of his own parents' destruction? He looked at his phone, at the photo that served as his wallpaper now. Iris holding Maya, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. His family. His real family. Yes. He was ready. Some things were more important than blood. Some loyalties had to be earned, not inherited. And Eleanor Harrington had spent 36 years teaching him to value family above all else. She had just never anticipated that he would one day apply that lesson against her. The Harrington estate looked the same as it always had. Immaculate grounds. Imposing architecture. The kind of wealth that announced itself from the moment you passed through the gates. Logan had grown up here, played on these lawns, learned to ride a bicycle on these paths. It had been home once. Now it felt like enemy territory. He did not announce his arrival. He walked through the front door without ringing the bell, past the startled staff members who had known him since childhood, through the marble foyer with its priceless art and fresh flowers, toward the study where his mother conducted her business. The door was open. She was waiting for him. Logan. Eleanor looked up from her desk with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. What a pleasant surprise. I was beginning to think you had forgotten you had parents. She looked the same as always. Perfectly coiffed hair. Tasteful jewelry. The kind of ageless elegance that came from the best dermatologists and a complete absence of conscience. I have been busy. Logan replied, stopping in the doorway. Getting answers. Something flickered across Eleanor's face. Just for a moment, so brief he might have imagined it. Then the mask was back, serene and maternal. Answers to what, darling? To everything. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. I know about Dad's embezzlement. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about the 15 years of stealing from cancer patients and underprivileged children. Eleanor's expression did not change, but he saw her hands still on the desktop. I do not know what you are talking about. Yes, you do. Logan crossed to stand in front of her desk, looking down at the woman who had given him life and then spent the last 3 years poisoning it. And I know about Iris. I know you threatened her. I know you forced her to leave. I know you fabricated evidence to frame her if she ever tried to come back. Now Eleanor's composure cracked. Just slightly, just enough for Logan to see the calculation happening behind her eyes. That woman. She spat the word. You have been talking to that woman. After everything I did to protect you from her. You did not protect me. You destroyed me. You took away the woman I loved and the daughter I did not know I had. Daughter. The word hung in the air between them. Eleanor's face went through a rapid transformation. Shock. Then understanding. Then something that looked almost like hunger. She was pregnant. Eleanor breathed. When I sent her away, she was pregnant. She did not know yet. But yes. And for 3 years, I had a daughter growing up without a father because you decided to eliminate a threat instead of facing the truth about your husband. I was protecting this family. You were protecting yourself. Logan slammed his hand on the desk, making Eleanor flinch. Dad was the one stealing, but you were the one covering it up. You were the one building the frame job against Iris. You were the one who decided that an innocent woman's life was worth less than the Harrington reputation. Everything I did was for you. Eleanor's voice rose, losing its careful control. Do you think I enjoyed any of this? Do you think I wanted to threaten that girl? But she would have destroyed everything. The foundation, our standing in society, your future. I did what I had to do. You had choices. You could have turned Dad in yourself. You could have dealt with the embezzlement privately. You could have done anything except terrorize a pregnant woman into hiding and lie to your son for 3 years. She would have taken you from us. She would have married me. We would have had a life together. We would have raised our daughter together. And instead. Logan's voice cracked with the weight of everything he had lost. Instead, I spent 3 years thinking I was unlovable. Thinking the one person who truly saw me had only been using me. Building walls so high no one could ever hurt me again. You survived. Eleanor countered. You thrived. Look at what you have built. I built it to fill the hole you created. And it did not work. Nothing worked. Because you cannot replace love with success. You cannot substitute money for meaning. You should know that better than anyone, Mother. You have spent 40 years proving it. Eleanor stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I will not be lectured about love by my own son. Everything I have done has been for this family. For you. Then consider this my resignation from this family. Logan reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it on the desk between them. That is a copy of everything I have sent to the FBI, the IRS, and the boards of every foundation Dad stole from. Financial records, wire transfers, shell company documentation. All of it. You did not. I did. And I sent copies to 3 major newspapers, embargoed for 48 hours. Eleanor's face went white. She reached for the envelope with trembling hands, flipping through the documents inside. You will destroy us. No. You destroyed us. I am just making it public. This is your father's legacy. Your inheritance. Everything we built. Everything you stole. Logan corrected. And I do not want it. I do not want any of it. I have my own fortune, built without dirty money. I have a daughter who will grow up knowing her father chose integrity over inheritance. And I have the woman you tried to erase from my life, who is more valuable than everything in this house combined. Eleanor looked up from the documents, and for the first time, Logan saw fear in his mother's eyes. Real fear, not the calculated performance she had shown the world for decades. What do you want? She asked, and her voice was barely a whisper. To negotiate. To make a deal. I can give you money, properties, whatever you want. Just make this go away. I want you to face the consequences of what you did. Logan stepped back from the desk. You have 48 hours to turn yourselves in voluntarily. Dad's lawyers can negotiate a surrender. You can spin it however you want. But if you run, if you try to hide, if you do anything to threaten Iris or Maya ever again. He let the words hang in the air. I will burn the Harrington name to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. You would do that to your own mother. You did worse to the woman who was almost my wife. Logan turned toward the door. The difference is, I am giving you a choice. You never gave her one. Logan, wait. Eleanor's voice cracked. Please. I am your mother. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. For a moment, just a moment, he felt the pull of 36 years of conditioning. The voice in his head that said family was everything, that blood was thicker than water, that there had to be some way to fix this without destroying the only parents he had ever known. Then he thought of Iris. Giving birth alone in a hospital under a fake name. Spending 3 years watching over her shoulder. Raising their daughter in fear because this woman, this mother who was now begging for mercy, had decided that power was more important than people. You made your choice 3 years ago. Logan said without turning around. Now I am making mine. He walked out without looking back. The fallout was spectacular and terrible and, ultimately, freeing. Within 48 hours, Harrison Harrington had been indicted on 17 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming, the paper trail irrefutable. His lawyers negotiated a surrender that avoided the spectacle of a public arrest, but the perp walk into federal court was still broadcast on every major news network. Eleanor was charged as an accessory, her years of covering up the crimes finally brought into the light. The threats against Iris were documented in court filings, providing context for why a key witness had disappeared and remained hidden for 3 years. The Harrington name, which had once commanded respect in every corner of high society, became synonymous with scandal. Charity boards demanded the removal of the family's name from buildings and programs. Politicians who had once courted Harrington donations suddenly could not remember ever meeting them. The empire Eleanor had spent 40 years building crumbled in a matter of weeks. And Logan watched it all from Portland, holding his daughter in his arms while the news played on mute in the background. How do you feel? Iris asked, sitting beside him on the couch. He thought about the question for a long moment. Relieved. He said finally. And sad. And angry. All at the same time. Do you regret it? No. Logan looked down at Maya, who was chewing contentedly on a rubber giraffe. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my parents made choices that led to this. But I do not regret protecting you and Maya. I do not regret choosing truth over complicity. Your mother called again today. I know. Are you going to talk to her? Logan sighed. Eleanor had been calling daily since her arrest, leaving voicemails that alternated between pleading and threatening. She was out on bail, awaiting trial, her passport confiscated and her assets frozen. The woman who had once controlled an empire was now under house arrest in the mansion that felt more like a prison than the penthouse Logan had escaped. Eventually. He said. Not now. Maybe not for a long time. But eventually, I will have to face her again. If only to make sure she understands why. Why what? Why I chose you. Why I chose Maya. Why family is not about blood or money or legacy. It is about who shows up. Who stays. Who chooses you even when choosing you is hard. Iris leaned against his shoulder, and he felt her warmth seeping into him. I spent 3 years running from your family. She said quietly. Now I do not have to run anymore. No. You do not. And neither do I. Let me pause here, because this moment matters. Logan Harrington had every reason to protect his parents. The money, the name, the inheritance that would have set him up for generations. He could have looked the other way, could have negotiated a quiet settlement, could have preserved the Harrington empire while sweeping its crimes under the rug. He chose differently. He chose a woman who had been wronged. He chose a daughter who deserved better than a legacy built on stolen money. He chose truth, even when truth was expensive and painful and cost him everything he had been raised to value. That is what integrity looks like. Not when it is easy, but when it costs everything. If this story has moved you, if it has made you think about what you would sacrifice for the people you love, I need you to take action right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that doing the right thing is always worth it. And subscribe to this channel because every story I tell is about ordinary people making extraordinary choices. Now, let me show you what happened in the months that followed. The trial of Harrison and Eleanor Harrington lasted 4 months. Logan testified twice. Once about the financial evidence he had discovered, and once about the impact of his mother's schemes on his personal life. He sat in a witness chair and described, in clinical detail, the 3 years he had spent believing Iris had betrayed him. The hollow success he had built to fill the void she left. The daughter he had missed the first 3 weeks of knowing because his mother had decided to play God with other people's lives. It was not easy. Facing his father across a courtroom, seeing the man who had once taught him to ride a bicycle now wearing an ankle monitor and looking 20 years older than he had 6 months ago. Hearing his mother's lawyers attempt to paint him as a disgruntled heir seeking revenge for perceived slights. But he did it anyway. Because Maya deserved to grow up in a world where people were held accountable for their actions. Because Iris deserved to see the woman who had tormented her face justice. Because some things were more important than comfort or family loyalty or the path of least resistance. Harrison Harrington was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Eleanor received 8 years, with the possibility of parole after 5 for good behavior. When the verdicts were announced, Logan was in Portland with Iris and Maya. They watched the news coverage together, the talking heads analyzing what it all meant, the legal experts debating the sentences, the society columnists lamenting the fall of a great family. "How do you feel now?" Iris asked, echoing her question from months before. "The same," Logan replied. "And different. I thought seeing them sentenced would give me closure. But it just feels like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another." "What chapter comes next?" Logan turned off the television and turned to face Iris fully. Maya was in her playpen, building towers with soft blocks and knocking them down with delighted shrieks. "I want to build something," he said. "Something that means something. The foundation my parents corrupted, the one that was supposed to help cancer patients and underprivileged children. I want to rebuild it. A new foundation, with real oversight and transparency. Something Maya can be proud of when she grows up. That is a big undertaking. I know. I cannot do it alone." He reached for her hand. "I was hoping you might help me." Iris looked at him for a long moment. He could see the questions in her eyes. The uncertainty about what he was really asking. The fear of hoping for too much. "What exactly are you asking me, Logan?" "I am asking you to be my partner. In the foundation. In raising Maya. In everything." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know we have been taking things slow. I know you have every reason not to trust me, even after everything that has happened. But I love you, Iris. I never stopped loving you. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of a second chance." Tears were streaming down Iris's face now, and she made no move to wipe them away. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know. What if it falls apart again? What if something happens and then we face it together? We do not run, we do not hide, we do not let anyone or anything drive us apart again. We choose each other, every day, no matter what." Maya threw a block that landed at their feet, and both of them laughed through their tears. "I think that is her way of saying she approves," Iris said. "She is a wise child. Clearly takes after her mother." Iris reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. "I love you too," she said. "I never stopped either. I just learned to bury it so deep I almost forgot it was there. You do not have to bury it anymore." "No," she agreed. "I do not." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the kisses they had shared 3 years ago. Those had been passionate and hungry, fueled by infatuation and the excitement of new love. This was different. Deeper. Seasoned with loss and pain and the hard-won wisdom of people who had survived the worst and found their way back to each other. When they finally pulled apart, Maya was watching them with wide eyes, a block clutched in each hand. "Mama," she said clearly. "Dada." And both of them burst into tears of joy. 1 year later, the Harrington Foundation for Hope officially launched. It was nothing like the old foundation that had borne the family name. This one had independent oversight, public accounting, and a mission statement that prioritized impact over image. Every dollar was tracked. Every program was evaluated. Every decision was made with the people they served in mind, not the donors they wanted to impress. Iris served as executive director, bringing her experience of surviving on nothing to an organization dedicated to helping others do the same. She created programs for single mothers, support systems for people starting over, resources for anyone who had ever felt alone and afraid and unsure how to take the next step. Logan handled the business side, leveraging his connections and expertise to bring in donors who cared about making a difference rather than getting their names on buildings. He worked alongside Iris every day, and every day he marveled at the woman she had become. The fear was gone from her eyes now, replaced by purpose and confidence and joy. And Maya. Their daughter was 18 months old now, toddling everywhere with the determination of a child who had inherited stubbornness from both parents. She attended foundation events in tiny dresses that Iris picked out, and Logan inevitably got stained with whatever Maya was eating that day. She charmed donors and staff members alike with her gap-toothed smile and her tendency to offer anyone who would listen a detailed tour of whatever toy she was currently obsessed with. She was their miracle. The bridge between their broken past and their hopeful future. The wedding happened on a Tuesday. Not because Tuesday held any particular significance, but because that was the day that felt right. A quiet Tuesday in autumn, with the leaves turning gold and red outside the windows of the small venue they had chosen. No grand society affair. No massive guest list or elaborate decorations or weeks of planning. Just family and close friends, gathered in a garden in Portland to witness two people who had lost everything find their way back to each other. Iris walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, Maya toddling beside her with a basket of flower petals that she was more interested in eating than scattering. Logan waited at the altar in a suit that cost a fraction of what his old wardrobe had, but fit him better than anything he had ever worn. When Iris reached him, when she took his hand and looked into his eyes, he saw everything they had been through reflected there. The joy and the pain, the loss and the reunion, the years apart and the lifetime ahead. "I love you," he whispered, not waiting for the ceremony to begin. "I know," she whispered back. "I love you too." The officiant smiled and began the service, but neither Logan nor Iris heard much of it. They were too busy looking at each other, too overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment, too grateful for the improbable series of events that had brought them here. When it was time for vows, Logan spoke from the heart. "I promised you once that I would spend my life with you. I broke that promise, not by choice but by circumstance, and I spent 3 years paying for it. Today, I am making that promise again. But this time, I know what I am promising. I am promising to choose you when choosing is hard. To stay when staying hurts. To face whatever comes together, because together is the only way I want to face anything anymore. You are my family, Iris. You and Maya. Everything else is just details." Iris wiped tears from her eyes before speaking her own vows. "I spent 3 years running from the life I thought I had lost. I spent 3 years convinced that love was too dangerous, that trusting someone meant giving them the power to destroy you. You proved me wrong. Not with words, but with action. With showing up every day. With choosing Maya and me over everything that would have been easier. I do not know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. Because you are worth the risk, Logan. You always were." The officiant pronounced them married, and Maya shrieked with delight and threw flower petals in the air, and everyone laughed and cried and celebrated the union that should have happened 3 years ago but was happening now, exactly when it was meant to. 5 years later, the Harrington Foundation for Hope had grown into one of the most respected charitable organizations in the country. Their programs had helped thousands of single mothers find their footing. Their scholarships had sent hundreds of first-generation students to college. Their support networks had given hope to people who had none. And every year, on the anniversary of its founding, Logan and Iris hosted a gala. Not the kind of ostentatious affair that the old Harringtons would have thrown, but a genuine celebration of the people they had helped and the lives they had changed. Maya, now 6 years old, served as the unofficial hostess of these events. She had her mother's dark curls and her father's stubborn jaw, and she approached philanthropy with the same determination she brought to everything else. Everyone should have a home. She explained to a bemused donor at that year's gala. Everyone should have food and school and people who love them. That is what we do. We give people love. The donor wrote a check for twice what he had originally intended. James, their 3-year-old son, was less articulate but equally charming. He followed his sister everywhere, copying her gestures and attempting to repeat her words with varying degrees of success. Together, they were a force of nature that left a trail of delighted adults in their wake. "Your children are remarkable," the donor told Logan and Iris as Maya led her brother away in search of the dessert table. "They take after their mother," Logan replied, smiling at Iris. Iris rolled her eyes but could not hide her smile. "They get their stubbornness from you. I prefer to call it determination. Call it what you want. It is still the reason I could not get Maya to go to bed before the gala started." They shared a laugh, the easy intimacy of two people who had built a life together through trial and triumph. Later that night, after the gala ended and the children were finally asleep, Logan and Iris stood on the porch of their home. It was the same Victorian house where Logan had shown up on that rainy night 5 years ago. They had bought it, renovated it, filled it with love and laughter and the chaos of raising 2 children. It was their home now, in every sense of the word. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Iris asked, leaning against his shoulder as they watched fireflies dance in the darkness. "Sometimes," Logan admitted. "I think about the 3 years we lost. I think about what would have happened if I had questioned my mother's story, if I had searched harder, if I had trusted my instincts instead of her lies. Do you regret anything?" He considered the question seriously, as he always did when she asked it. "I regret the pain. Yours and mine. I regret the fear you lived with for so long. I regret not being there when Maya was born, not holding your hand through labor, not seeing her first breath. But But I do not regret who we became. He turned to face her fully. The pain made us stronger. The separation made us appreciate each other more. The lies made us value truth in a way we might not have otherwise. I wish the path had been easier, but I cannot regret where it led. Iris smiled, and even after 5 years of marriage, that smile still made his heart skip. I feel the same way. She said. I would not trade what we have now for anything. Not even an easier past. They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the night. Crickets chirping. A car passing on the distant road. The creak of their house settling around them. I love you. Logan said, because some things bore repeating. I love you too. Iris replied. Always. They walked inside together, checking on Maya and James before heading to their own room. The children slept peacefully, unaware of the complicated history that had brought their family into existence. Unaware that their parents had once been separated by lies and reunited by truth. Unaware that the love surrounding them had been tested by fire and emerged stronger for it. They would learn someday. When they were old enough, Logan and Iris would tell them the story. About the grandmother who chose power over people. About the mother who sacrificed everything to protect her children. About the father who walked into a house in anger and found something that changed his life forever. But for now, they just slept. And dreamed. And grew. And that was enough. This is the end of our story, and I want to speak to you one final time. Logan Harrington walked into Iris's house expecting a confrontation. He found instead a daughter, a truth, and a second chance he never expected. Iris West spent 3 years running from a threat she could not fight, only to discover that the man she had sacrificed everything to protect was finally ready to protect her back. This story was never really about billionaires and mansions and dramatic courtroom scenes. It was about something much simpler and much more profound. It was about the courage to question the stories we are told. The strength to choose truth over comfort. The grace to let someone prove they have changed. And the faith to try again, even when trying means risking everything. Real wealth has nothing to do with money. Real legacy has nothing to do with names. Real power is simply this. The courage to stay, to change, to love imperfectly but completely, and to keep showing up even when showing up is the hardest thing imaginable. Logan showed up. Iris showed up. And together, they built something that all the money in the world could not buy. A family. A purpose. A love that survived betrayal and emerged stronger on the other side. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that broken things can be rebuilt and that mistakes do not have to be permanent, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that like button. It tells me that these stories matter to you. Second, share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is never too late to start over. That love is worth fighting for. That the people who hurt you do not get to define your future. Third, subscribe to Mr. Dawson's Stories and turn on notifications. Because every week, I am here telling stories about real people making impossible choices. Stories about love and loss and redemption. Stories that remind us what it means to be human. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about these characters. And thank you for believing, along with me, that every ending can become a new beginning. I will see you in the next story.